Hello! This story is part of a series titled Memories of Tehran. In part 1, I share my family's first trip to Australia, visiting with our aunties and uncles, and my first experience with an egg machine. This story is also about the innocence of childhood and making mistakes, the teachers who come along, and the lessons we learn. Welcome to Storytime with Kumars. My name is Kayo Jijina, and this is my story titled A Matter of the Curious Egg, Part 1, The Egg Machine. I hope you enjoy it. I was 11 years old when Dad took us on our first trip to Sydney, Australia, to visit family. I have no memory of the flight over or whether or not we made our connections flying standby on Iran Air. The relatives in question were from Mom's side of the family and had immigrated from Iran a few years earlier. Altogether, there were 4, if you counted Uncle Melly. Uncle Melly was Granny Ferengi's sister's son. He would boast of being a confirmed bachelor back in the days when people were expected to get married regardless of interest or sexual preference. And matchmakers made their rounds with tiny black books filled with passport-sized photos. First to leave was Mom's oldest sister, Shara Ostavari Pushasp, and her family, followed by brothers Shapur and Nozar Ostavari, with their respective families. It had been a few years since the move, and Mom was eager to visit, and Dad must have been thinking of immigrating there someday in the future. According to Uncle, Shara and Shapur had left to get away from Akhtar Auntie, who was Nozar Uncle's wife. The irony was, they followed suit. After a bout of cancer, Shara Auntie's husband, Uncle Faridun, passed away, and we stayed with her and her 2 chihuahuas as part of our visit. Her youngest son, Dariush, might have also been living at the house, but I don't remember seeing him there much. It may have had something to do with the 5 of us invading their space, forcing him to give up his room and spend the nights at one of the uncles. The visit would have been for a couple of weeks before returning home to Tehran. Late one afternoon, my parents, Mani, short for Manije, and Rusi, short for Rustam, took brother, sister, and I on a walk to the neighborhood pharmacy. As was customary, brother and I were told to wait outside, while Mom, Dad, and sister went in. Next to the pharmacy's entrance stood 2 giant lollipop-shaped machines with shiny red caps. Under strict instructions not to move from the spot we had been told to wait, I walked closer to get a look. Through the glass, I saw clear plastic eggs containing miniature figurines in the form of brown farm animals. They reminded me of the green toy soldiers brother and I played with at home. Peeking closer, I saw other animals inside. There were chickens and horses and sheep and goats and cows. The farm animals were calling out to me, begging me to take them home. I waited anxiously for Mom, Dad, and sister to finish their shopping. As soon as they walked out of the pharmacy, I motioned them to come over to the machine. My pleading for a new toy worked. Mom reached into her jacket pocket, pulled out a coin purse. Carefully separating the Iranian rials from the Australian coins, she handed brother and I 2 5-cent pieces. After returning to Shara Auntie's home, I began to think of all the ways I could play with my newfound friend, Goat Goat. I asked Shara Auntie for some paper, scissors, and scotch tape. With a little imagination, I cut out a barn and a corral and glued it all together. Finally, I transferred Goat Goat from the security of my pocket into the fenced yard. Showing everyone my creation, I hinted at a need for more farm animals, as Goat Goat was no doubt feeling lonely. Shara Auntie knew what that meant. She reached into her pocket purse and handed me another 5-cent coin. That night, as I slept, I dreamt of farm animals and how much fun they would have playing together. By morning, I knew I would need a few more animals than 2. I came up with a plan. I would search the house for lost coins. I made a sweep of the house, checking underneath seat cushions, behind beds, closet floors. I found nothing. There was no change to be found anywhere. Suddenly, a voice whispered in my head, "Check Mom's jacket pocket. That's where the last coin came from." I walked over to the hallway closet where we hung our jackets. One by one, I rifled through the pockets and kept coming up empty. Suddenly, I felt something metal and round. My fingers latched onto it and I pulled out a 20-cent Australian coin. No sooner was the coin in my hand when a voice much softer than the first chimed in. "Something doesn't feel right here." Dismissing the voice of conscience, I went about planning a trip to the pharmacy. It did not take much coaxing for Mom to give me the okay to go down to the pharmacy by myself, and off I went. After arriving at the egg machine, I discovered the first obstacle to my plan. The slot was too small to accept the 20-cent coin. "What do I do now?" I asked. "Go inside and ask for change," urged the voice, and I did. I walked inside and explained the dilemma I was facing with the egg machine, and the cashier was more than happy to help. Walking home, with the tiny treasures in my hand, I realized I had no way of explaining to my mother how I went with the pharmacy with one 5-cent coin and bought 5 animals costing 25 cents. "Well," said the voice, "tell her you put the coin in, turn the handle very carefully, and 5 eggs slipped into the chamber." A miracle had taken place. I rushed back to share the story of the egg machine miracle. It was well received. I hadn't considered what I would do if someone had asked me to repeat it. A few days later, Mom and Dad were out shopping with Sister. Brother and I were left in the care of the one-eyed, one-horned, flying purple people eater, the television. Australia had great television programs, much better than Tehran, and it did not take long for us to turn into television zombies. When Mom and Dad returned, they asked me to bring my farm animals and join them in the kitchen. As I did, they shut the door. The mood in the kitchen was a somber one, the look on their faces stern and serious. I hadn't put 1 and 1 together yet. Dad spoke first.
"Your mother had a coin in the pocket of her blue overcoat. Do you know what might have happened to it?"
I sat there quietly, feeling my heart sinking deeper into my chest, as Dad kept his gaze focused on me.
"Mom noticed the coin missing around the time you showed up with the 5 eggs.
"Uh-oh," went the voice in the head, just before it decided to abandon me, leaving me to fend for myself. "Nice knowing you." Dad's eyes were beginning to take on that piercing look I knew all too well. I was sweating. I knew my father's questions were rhetorical, but if I lied, it would only make the trouble worse. Before I could open my mouth, Mom lost her patience and jumped in. "Don't lie to me! I know you took the money to buy your eggs. What do you think? We are stupid? Do you think we don't know what you did? Do you think you can get away with it?" Mom turned red, but Dad remained calm. Dad continued.
"We have decided to punish you for stealing and lying about it. We cannot have you do these types of things. We are a family. We have to be able to trust you. If you need some money, talk to us about it. If it makes sense, we will find a way to give it to you. Didn't we buy you the first egg? How do you think Auntie and your cousins will feel now, knowing you are in their home and you might steal something from them? If you steal even one time, anything goes missing, they will think it was you. They will accuse you, blame you, even if you did not do it. So it is important to live your life in such a way that if something is misplaced or goes missing, you are able to stand up and say it was not you and have people believe you. Son, I am very disappointed in you."
By the time he was finished, I was in tears. My little caper had turned upside down. Up to that point, it had been a game on how to buy more eggs. But now, the implications of my behavior were sinking in.
Son, you need to apologize to your mother, give her a hug, and promise never to do it again.
With that, I walked over to Mom and looked her in the eyes. Her eyes were down and her face stern. I am very sorry, Mom, for taking the coin out of your pocket. It will never happen again, I promise. I reached over and gave her a big hug. Mom sat there saying nothing.
As a punishment,
Dad resumed,
we got your brother a Lego set, and for you something a little smaller, a plastic model of a car. And we are going to take the eggs away. Next time you get the urge to do something like this, I want you to think about it seriously.
As I walked away from the kitchen, there was a feeling of emptiness. Like a dark creature had taken a bite out of my chest. It was when I decided I would not be listening to that voice again. It was not worth feeling this way. It took me a day or two for my happy self to return, and when it did, I realized I liked myself much better than the voice in my head.